The NBA 82-game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for all the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw-dropping plays. I can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the play-in games all the way through to the finals, now's the time to back your favorite players and teams as they chase glory. All season long, DraftKings has been the go-to spot for NBA player props, and that does not stop now. Want to make your playoff experience even more intense? Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30 points, 40, or more? It's your call. Ready to place your first bet? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Lock in your bets. Let's make this playoff run unforgettable. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code HOOPS. That's HOOPS. That's code HOOPS for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great end to your weekend. We got a jam-packed show for you guys today. We're going to hit on 4 games. I'm going to be primarily leaning into the first 2 games of the day. Those are the 2 games that I thought were most interesting. So we're going to talk Lakers-Wolves off the top, and then I've got a lot of thoughts on Knicks-Pistons. We'll be going shorter on Celtics-Magic, as well as Pacers-Bucks, but we'll have some thoughts there at the tail end of the show, too. Also, no mailbag at the tail end of the show today, just so you guys know, but we're going to be hitting all 4 of those games, and then we'll get out of here for the night. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements. Don't forget about our podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. It's also super helpful if you leave a rating and a review on that front. We also have social media feeds on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook where Jackson's doing great work. Make sure you guys follow us there. And then, as I mentioned off top, last but not least, keep dropping mailbag questions in those YouTube comments. All right, let's talk some basketball. I was telling the guys before the show started, it's a very rough day for my personal playoff rooting interests. My men's league team had a playoff game today, too, that we lost on a game-winning jump shot at the buzzer in OT from my former college teammate, my point guard back when I was playing in college. Shout out to Dom Banks, just an incredible player, good friend of mine, hit a big-time shot to beat us today. So took that knife to the chest and then had to go home and watch the other knife go into my chest in the form of the Lakers losing that game in the fourth quarter to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So obviously, before we get any deeper into it, just congratulations to Wolves fans. I'm sure you guys are very happy that I am wrong about what ended up happening in this series. And it's been especially painful for me because Anthony Edwards just continues to take a special place in my basketball heart, so to speak, as I've always loved watching him play and just watching the way that he has broken my heart, so to speak, as a Lakers fan in this series has just made me love him even more as a player. And I'm really happy for you Wolves fans, and you guys are in great shape moving forward, not just in this series, but moving forward for the rest of this playoff run and for the rest of this era that you guys have put together. So to me, game 4 basically came down to a gamble that JJ Redick made in the second half. A bet based on 2 things. One, that the Luka, LeBron, Austin, Dorian Finney-Smith, Rui Hachimura lineup was consistently generating great shots against Minnesota's defense, and he wanted to ride that out as much as possible. And the Lakers effectively, after tonight's game or today's game, had like 2.5 full days of rest before game 5 on Wednesday. Like they would have had all night tonight off, all day Monday off, all day Tuesday off, most of the day on Wednesday. So I don't think he was worried about long-term wear and tear. But the gamble was that the Lakers would be able to survive those 24 minutes without succumbing to the physical onslaught of Minnesota. And that ended up being the give and take, right? And the Lakers just couldn't quite hold on. I thought Ant's shot making in the early fourth quarter was the first sign of that onslaught. I talked a lot after game 3 about how you pretty much just have to cross your fingers and hope Ant misses those pull-up threes because you can't realistically take them away. You're just going to give the best athlete in the league a crazy runway over and over again. You have to play with you have to play essentially to concede a contested pull back or step back type of three, right? He hit 3 of them in the early fourth quarter, including a 28-footer over Austin Reeves with just under 8 minutes left that cut the lead down to 4. And that like immediately changed the tone and tenor of the game. And it turned it into a high pressure half court slugfest. And once again, just like in game 3, Ant and the Wolves just looked better down the stretch. Naz Reid came in, one of the few fresh legs guys on the floor there down the stretch. He immediately scored 8 points. He scored against Austin on a switch. He had 2 long threes at the top of the key. The Lakers kind of started to show their fatigue on those 2 threes. On the first one, Luka beats Naz Reid off the dribble and smokes a layup, like right at the rim, smokes a layup. And then in transition, Luka made a bad read. He should have matched up with Naz. Him and Naz were the last 2 guys back in the play, but Luka just misread the floor and ran to go guard Austin Reeves' man, even though Austin Reeves was already there. That left Naz Reid open. Just a mental mistake, probably that came from fatigue to a certain extent. And then on the second one, Naz broke open on a screening action, kind of a 2 guys at the elbow. Naz was on the far elbow, and LeBron just was resting or fatigued or whatever it was. He just was like flat-footed, standing upright. And when Naz ran off the screen, like it probably should have been a switch, but LeBron should have been up, like communicating with Austin, like, hey, Naz is getting ready to come up. You got to be ready to switch. Both LeBron and Austin were just a little slow to react, and Naz breaks open at the top of the key and hits another 3. And Ant made a very similar kick-out read on a baseline drive that looked very similar to the one in game 3 where he hit Naz Reid on the left wing. He hit Dante DiVincenzo on the left wing, who drove the closeout and got an and one. Another great decision from Ant down the stretch. Ant beat a double team. He was getting double teamed by Dorian Finney-Smith and Rui Hachimura out in the kind of like left, like just in front of half court on the left side of the floor. And Rui lost contain. Ant actually beat the double team off the dribble, forced Luka to help. It turned into effectively a triple team that caught LeBron in like this weird 3-on-1 underneath the basket where Ant makes a beautiful pass to Naz. LeBron flashes. LeBron drops it off to Naz Reid makes a nice connective pass to Jaden McDaniels on the baseline. Austin Reeves fouls him. That ends up basically being the game winner. That lineup with Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo in for Rui and Rudy have been killing me in this series. In for Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley is probably their best lineup. It creates space while still maintaining their size and physicality. It closed the deal yet again for the Wolves tonight. And now they are in serious control of this series. It's not over. The Lakers will have their shot. We'll talk about that in a little bit later on. But this same theme from the end of tonight's game has repeated itself over and over again in this series. Even in the game 2 when the Lakers won, it felt like over the course of the end of the game, the Lakers start to look old and tired while the Wolves continue to look like the Wolves, and then they take control. The Lakers came apart at the seams and a bunch of basic execution details late that I do think were associated with fatigue. On the Jaden McDaniels game winner, Rui Hachimura loses contain on a double team. When you're bracketing in a double team, the ball's here, and these are the 2 defenders bracketing. This guy has to prevent him from driving outside. This guy has to prevent him from driving outside. You have to contain the ball and force Ant to make a pass. But if you go back and watch Rui, as he's sliding, you can literally see how exhausted he is with the way he was moving. On the Naz Reid threes, like I mentioned, Luka smoking the easy layup and losing Naz with a mental mistake. LeBron getting caught relaxing. Austin missed several wide open threes in the fourth quarter. LeBron had 0 points in the fourth quarter, was generally uninvolved in the offense. But this is where it gets tricky, though. I knew coming into the series that this would be a physical tug of war. I knew that the Wolves would wear on the Lakers over the course of games just by being more athletic. I knew the Lakers would be able to score, but I also knew they would wear down. What I didn't predict was just how badly Anthony Edwards would win the superstar matchup with Luka Doncic. This is where the entire series turned. The Lakers were tied with 4 minutes left in game 3. The Lakers were up 2 with 4 minutes left today. Luka had 0 points in both of those sequences from that point forward. In this series, Luka Doncic has been 5 for 17 in the fourth quarter. Anthony Edwards, 10 for 23. Anthony Edwards has made twice as many fourth quarter field goals as Luka Doncic in this series. Luka has 1 fourth quarter assist. Anthony Edwards has 7. That's the series. That's it right there. 2 games, game 3 and game 4, coin flip games that came down to clutch shot creation from the 2 team superstars. And Anthony Edwards went toe-to-toe with the guy that many people, including myself before the season, placed as the second best player in the league. And Ant just straight up alpha dogged him. He stared down the guy who beat him in the playoffs last year and straight up kicked his ass. The insane shot making, the growth as a playmaker, it's been incredible to watch. And here's how important it's been. The Lakers actually outscored the Wolves in the last 3 games by 17 points in the first 3 quarters. But Ant and the Wolves have won the fourth quarters by 23 points. Turned 2 of those games into Wolves wins. Anthony Edwards, has been the swing between this series being 3-1 Lakers and it being 3-1 Wolves. Now, I want to be clear before we talk a little bit about Luka here. Luka is not the only one to blame for what happened today. As I mentioned, LeBron made several mistakes. He had a bad turnover in the final minute. It was kind of on everybody. There was this weird trip where Jaden McDaniels tripped Luka. Probably should have been a foul, where that led to a sideline out of bounds with 17 seconds on the shot clock. Because there's 17 seconds on the shot clock, the Lakers could not inbound into the backcourt. They had to inbound into the front court. So that caused a very tight space. Basically, LeBron was just on the other side of half court out on that sideline. It basically took the amount of space that the Lakers could inbound to and cut it in half. And the Wolves defended it pretty well. Luka was kind of in a position where he could catch, but Jaden was right on his backside, and LeBron took a bad angle. He threw it to Luka's right shoulder. Luka's left shoulder, he probably catches it, but he threw it to the wrong shoulder. That's a bad turnover on LeBron. He took a bad 3 with 5 seconds left off the left wing in the final minutes. He lost Naz Reid on one of his threes like we talked about. He scored 0 points. LeBron shares some blame. Austin Reeves missed 5 threes in the fourth quarter, a couple of wide open ones in the final minutes. Rui Hachimura made a few defensive mistakes. I want to be clear, tonight is not only Luka's fault. But Luka is the one player on that team who is truly capable of closing that deal. And he went 1 for 6. And he looked like completely exhausted and lifeless down the stretch. Now, before you tell me, well, Jason, he played the entire second half. That's on JJ Redick. Well, so did Ant. Ant played 24 minutes in the second half. Julius Randle played 23 and a half minutes in the second half. Naz Reid can pull the I was fresh card. Everyone was fatigued. And yeah, I know that Ant is a better athlete, and he will look better when he's fatigued than Luka, but he looked like Ant. Luka didn't even look like Luka down the stretch of that game when his team desperately needed him to look like Luka. And it's been the entire series, 5 for 17 in the fourth quarter. So again, even though tonight wasn't entirely his fault, it was a set of mistakes from the team. My initial impression of Luka in the big picture, even beyond this series, has been that he consistently wears down at the end of games. He was also just 11 for 27 in clutch situations for the Lakers in the regular season this year. I'm not saying this to pick on Luka. I root for the guy for obvious reasons. I just want to see him reach his full potential. He's getting passed by his peers right now. Tatum is playing better than him. Shea's playing better than him. Ant's playing better than him. Hell, Steph is playing better than him. He's leaving meat on the bone when it comes to his potential. And I genuinely believe that if he could figure out his conditioning, that he has a great chance to become the best basketball player alive. As Jokic phases out as he gets older, there will be no player in the league that has a better combination of scoring and playmaking ability than Luka Doncic. If he could become a player that holds up over the course of games, holds up over the course of seasons and series, can stay healthy, can be operating at peak efficiency at the end of games, while also being a plus defender, which he is capable of being, that's the best player in the world. That's what he's capable of doing. It is a real and achievable outcome for him. And it would literally just take one summer of obsessive work. The same obsessive work that all of the greats in NBA history have used to maximize their potential. The ball is in Luka's court. And like we all knew this before. I mean, that was literally the main storyline behind the trade, right? But we got to see it up close and personal here. I can put it this simply. Had Luka played to his potential in this series, the Lakers win this series. But instead, he faded at the end of games while his counterpart on the other team was fantastic, and it flipped entirely in the other direction. Other notes that I wanted to give before we move on to the next game. JJ's decision to play everybody all 24 minutes in the second half. Look, it was high risk, but it also had high reward. And I hate playing the results because so many things went wrong down the stretch that could have just as easily ended in a win for the Lakers. Even with everything that went wrong, the Lakers led in the final minute. And like, had they gotten it done, JJ would have looked like a genius as the Lakers went home for a long stretch of time off with the series tied. I also thought the Lakers were on the wrong end of two late calls. Luka got tripped at half court. He should have gone to the foul line after that. I thought LeBron, when he stripped Anthony Edwards underneath the basket, he was more or less in the hand, wrist, ball area, and the game was insanely physical. You would just let a non-call go when Jaden tripped Luka. I didn't like that call. And by the way, I'm not saying the Lakers are screwed. You know what I always said. Bad calls are a part of basketball games. You have to be prepared for that contingency. I don't blame the refs for today's outcome. I'm just saying it was a razor-thin margin. The Lakers very easily could have won that game. They didn't, but I'm not going to blame it on JJ based on that result. It was a gamble. The gamble came razor-thin close to paying off, and there was an obvious downside, which was fatigue, and the fatigue did play a role in the loss. I think that's worth bringing up. But like Chris Finch also played Anthony Edwards the entire second half and Julius Randle most of the second half. Like it's not exactly the craziest thing we've ever seen. They just were JJ was looking at it like I don't know that I can afford Vando minutes here. I don't know that I can afford Gabe minutes here. Now like I probably would have just found little short bursts to get them some rest, but like I'm not going to over criticize the risk based on a result that was like this close to going the other way and looking like JJ was a genius, right? Now, can the Lakers win the series? Of course. It's really simple, actually, if you get down to it. Do I think the Lakers can beat the Wolves in Game 5 on Wednesday? Yes, I actually think they will. I think the Lakers will win this game. I think the Wolves are going to win this series in Game 6 back in Minnesota. But from there, if the Lakers win on Wednesday in Game 5, you have Game 6 on Friday. It's one game in Minnesota. We know they can win. They were right there in each of the last two games. So you win on Wednesday, then you look at it on Friday and you go, just beat the Timberwolves in Minnesota one time. And if you do, then it's Game 7 on Sunday. You're the home team. You're likely favored. So they absolutely can win the series. I just think it's unlikely. I don't think Luka is going to suddenly get into better shape. He's wearing down not because he's not capable of doing the basketball things necessary. It is a literal conditioning problem. In order for the Lakers to come back and win the series, Luka would have to make me look foolish by suddenly transforming into the best player in the series, which he hasn't been to this point. So it's on the table. It's an outcome that can happen. I just think it's far more likely than not that the Wolves close this out. And on that note, just again, like I mentioned off the top, just I am happy for Wolves fans because you guys probably got sick and tired of hearing guys like me and everyone else out there tell you how the Lakers were going to win. Hell, the Wolves themselves were sick of it. And you just have such a great team and you have such a great star. And I am really looking forward to watching them as they move forward in this postseason should they be able to close the deal on Wednesday or on Friday. All right, Knicks-Pistons. As wrong as I've been about the Lakers-Wolves series, I've been pretty right about this one. The Pistons have been right there every single game. They led by 8 in the fourth quarter of Game 1. They obviously won Game 2. They were down by 3 with 5 minutes left in Game 3, and they led by 11 today in the fourth quarter of Game 4. But over and over again, the Knicks have been able to out-execute them at the end of these games because they are the smarter and more experienced team. Malik Beasley hits a 3 with 8.5 minutes left. That puts the Pistons up 11. From that point forward, the Knicks played at their ceiling. They knew they needed that game. They played peak Knicks basketball, while the Pistons on the other end made mistake after mistake after mistake. The Knicks were able to get offense on several fronts. Mikal Bridges actually started the run with two really tough movement threes out of the right corner in a game where he couldn't make a shot to save his life. Hit two massive ones in the right corner. Jalen Brunson got into a great rhythm after coming back from an ankle injury he suffered right along the sideline in front of the scorer's table. He's really solved Dennis Schroeder at this point in the series. He's figured out that he's just too big and strong for him. He had an easy layup on the left side where he just used a right to left crossover to get Dennis pinned on his right side and then just use that shoulder to create separation. Then he had a drive on the right wing where he literally went through Dennis's chest for a floater from about like 7-8 feet. But like he has solved the Dennis Schroeder matchup. He beat Cade Cunningham with a simple jab step move to get into the basket. He gave Tim Hardaway Jr. a couple of tough buckets. He had a step back going to his left on the three-point line. He had another little short shot along the left baseline. Brunson was fantastic down the stretch, but it was actually Karl Anthony Towns who saved the day and stole a win for the Knicks, hitting 3 jumpers. One was a simple catch and shoot off of a dumb overhelp from Jalen Duren that Jalen Brunson just kind of baited him into, just stared at the basket and pretended like he was going to ISO. Jalen just kind of sat there on the block and just was super keyed in on Brunson, and Jalen just rifled a pass across the court, wide open catch and shoot 3 for Karl Anthony Towns, knocks it down, just capitalizing on a bad defensive mistake from Jalen Duren. But then he hit an insane left shoulder fadeaway, just like he did in Game 3, this time over Jalen Duren, so over a tougher contest. It was probably even tougher than the shot he made in Game 3. Just insane right there along the baseline. Then he hits this step back 3 over Jalen Duren, a little shot clock kind of rescue possession, ends up in the late clock situation, and hits like a 28-footer off of a step back against a great contest from Jalen Duren. Just 2 insane shots that turned that loss into a win for the Knicks. The Knicks scored 26 points over the final 8 minutes to steal Game 4 and take a 3-1 lead heading back to New York. Here's a simple list for you guys of the execution errors that Detroit made down the stretch. Their first possession after Mikal Bridges hit a 3 in that right corner to cut the lead down to 8, they ran an ISO for Asar Thompson against Mikal Bridges. And anybody who watched that whole game knows Asar Thompson was really struggling in that game to do anything on offense. He was in no position to command that possession. They gave it to him and he missed. That's an execution error from the vets on the floor, putting Asar Thompson in that position. Then Asar Thompson threw the ball out of bounds. He cut to the basket off the right slot. K dropped it off to him, and he tried to make a connective pass to Malik Beasley, but he just didn't look before he threw it and rifled the ball out of bounds. JB Bickerstaff finally puts Dennis Schroeder in for him. So 2 big mistakes from Asar Thompson to start the run. Jalen Duren gets a defensive rebound and makes the classic young center mistake of bringing the ball down. Brings the ball down. Josh Hart comes in, swipes it off his leg, off the ensuing baseline out of bounds. Mikal Bridges comes off of a screen. Malik Beasley gets caught on it. Jalen Duren, again, when he sees a shooter coming off a screen, is supposed to be up at the level of the screen. He's way back in the paint. Mikal Bridges gets another clean look right where he just made one in the right corner, knocks it down. So literally 2 Jalen Duren mistakes turned what should have been a stop into 3 points for the Knicks. And again, I'm not trying to pick on Jalen Duren or any of these guys, Asar Thompson. I'm just pointing out the obvious fact that these are young players, and young players are going to struggle with attention to detail in big spots like this, right? They gave up an easy transition take foul to Josh Hart on a really bad offensive possession where Cade just stood out by like the logo while Mikal Bridges was face guarding him, and he just watched Dennis Schroeder and Malik Beasley have a rough offensive possession, which like, that's fine. Like, rough offensive possessions are part of the playoffs. It's super physical. Sometimes you just get exhausted. That's not the problem. The problem is both Schroeder and Beasley were slow to get back. You can't compound the problem by not getting back. It turned into like a 3-on-1, and Cade had to just wrap up Josh Hart. Cade turned it over trying to split a ball screen. That's a little spoiler alert. He does it again later in the game. On Cat's first 3, like I talked about, Jalen Duren is sinking all the way into the paint. That's just dumb. That was the whole reason why they had Tobias Harris on Cat originally to begin with, was to avoid that specific problem. Duren just struggles to guard shooting bigs, which is why he shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. That's on JB Bickerstaff. Like they need to make sure that they have their matchup set up in a way that they're not going to give up that sort of problem, especially since Cat was frying Jalen Duren anyway on an island. It's not like you're trying to protect Tobias Harris there in any way. Cat hits the fadeaway over Jalen Duren that cuts the lead to 2. Cade tries to ISO OG Anunoby, which is probably the worst matchup he could attack on the floor. We talked a lot about that. Jalen Brunson has been much more surgical about being deliberate to get to the matchups he wants. Cat hits a three to put the Knicks up. Cade tries to split a double team again. Josh Hart is right there, digging down off the strong side corner. And Cade just tries to split the double team again and turns it over again. And like, it was just mistake after mistake after poor decision after poor decision. But this is just the reality of the process of developing as a basketball team. In order to win at the highest levels, attention to detail is required. And young, inexperienced teams have a habit of missing those details, especially in their first few playoff runs. It's all good. Valuable lessons are being learned. It's just an explanation for why, even though Detroit presented so many problems for the Knicks over the course of the season, I had a feeling the Knicks were going to pull this series out. Last note on the Knicks, I wanted to shout out OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. Neither of them had big scoring nights, although Mikal hit a couple of huge threes in the right corner, but those guys defended about a half a dozen one-on-ones against Cade Cunningham down the stretch. And they didn't get beat off the dribble a single time. They forced him into a bunch of tough, contested, pull-up mid-rangers, turnaround jump shots out of the post. Brunson was getting to the rim, and New York's defenders were forcing Cade into jump shots, which has variance. You might miss them, right? Cade's a good mid-range jump shooter, but he might miss them. There's way less variance right at the rim. Jalen hit some tough jumpers. That step back to his left, a side step three off of against Tim Hardaway Jr. off the left wing. That's an incredibly tough shot, but he was at the rim. And that really is the experience element. Like, Cat played 3 playoff series last year. Jalen Brunson played 4 playoff series in the last 2 years. This team has just a lot of guys that have been in a lot of serious basketball over the last few years. That gives them an advantage in this sort of situation. Looking like the Knicks are going to close things out in 5 on Tuesday. All right, very briefly on Celtics-Magic and Pacers-Bucks. I thought Tatum was fantastic down the stretch of this game. Punishing switches, he had like a little jab step jumper over Gary Harris. He there was kind of like an obvious difference in just the level of patience and deliberate nature with which Tatum was attacking switches versus the Orlando Wings. Like, there was a sequence where on both ends of the floor, like Franz Wagner gets Peyton Pritchard, and he caught Peyton Pritchard as like a primary assignment a few times down the stretch, just pressuring Franz. Franz was having a lot of success attacking Porzingis. It's kind of an interesting kind of matchup decision there to just try to throw Franz off. But Franz tries to like drive against Pritchard, but he rushes. He drives and he spins in this like rushed floater and leaves it short. Right on the other end of the floor, Tatum gets Anthony Black, and he methodically takes his time to back him down way into the lane. And Anthony Black ends up hacking the shit out of him and dragging him down into camera row, and he gets 2 free throws. And it was just kind of crazy to see the difference between the super experienced dude who's played in like damn near 200 playoff games and the, young, inexperienced team that's like kind of figuring this out on the fly, and seeing the difference in just like how deliberate they were in their matchup attacking down the stretch. Tatum hit a crazy step back mid-ranger over Paolo Banchero. He drew 3 shooting fouls just by getting people to jump up underneath his base. I just continue to be amazed by Tatum's growth as a half-court decision maker. The big thing that stands out to me is just his overall comfort. You see this a lot with like stars that are at the peak of their powers in their like early 30s, where they have so much playoff experience already and they're so sure of who they are as a player. They may not be quite as athletic as they used to be, but they're just so smart because they've had so much experience playing. You'll see a lot of those guys like in high pressure situations, even late round playoff series, like conference finals. You'll just see them look comfortable and relaxed while they're playing. Tatum's in his mid-20s, and he's out there looking like one of those guys. That's been the thing that stood out to me all season with Tatum. It's just his overall level of comfort, executing in the half court, getting this team into the right spots to get the right shots. I loved the set that Joe Mazzulla ran out of the timeout that got Porzingis the dunk where he dunked his own miss. Classic example of what happens when you try to involve screening actions with 2 very different types of players. Derek White and Kristaps Porzingis. Not a kind of action that you want to switch. You don't want to switch with Wendell Carter Jr. there. Derek White sets a great screen. Wendell Carter Jr. falls. The Magic don't switch. Porzingis is wide open under the rim. He actually smokes the layup, but he gets a really quick second jump, which is a strong indicator of how he's feeling physically, and just dunks it down. Just an unbelievable play from Porzingis. Al Horford had a huge rebound where he beat Franz Wagner to the ball that led to a Derek White layup. I had a Celtics fan tweet at me after the game that this was the type of series that the Celtics would have been tied 2-2 or maybe even down 3-1 a couple of years ago. But here they are, up 3-1. And this was super important. They need to get the hell away from the Orlando Magic before someone gets hurt. Tatum felt the urgency, executed accordingly, and got the job done. And that's why I always put such a premium on that like veteran presence, that experience, because a lot of times these games are decided by the thinnest of margins. The Magic have been in this series for the most part outside of game 2. They've been in every game. It's like a more exaggerated example of some of the other series we've seen, like Rockets Warriors and like Knicks Pistons. And it just comes down to late game execution, and the grown-ups just tend to do it better in that situation, right? It's actually been the interesting part of the Minnesota Timberwolves series is they've been the younger team that has beat the veteran, more experienced team. But here they are. They're up 3-1. A good spot for the Celtics to be in good shape to close out this series. All right, really quickly before we get out of here tonight, Pacers, Bucks. First of all, I feel terrible for Dame to work as hard as he's worked behind the scenes to get back on the court for that series and to suffer the type of injury that he suffered. I just hope that he's doing okay mentally. I can't even imagine where he's at right now, especially after they had just got a big win and it was early in the game and you're in a position where you can potentially tie the series and give yourself a real chance to win. And it kind of reminded me, obviously very different type of injury, but it kind of reminded me, what happened after reminded me of what happened in the Lakers-Suns series in game 5. Yeah, I think it was game 5. So the Suns were up 3-1, right? If I remember correctly. And Anthony Davis comes back. And they're like, "Oh, Anthony Davis is back. You know, here we go. We're gonna have a chance to win the series." And probably shouldn't have come back as groin was obviously hurt. But in the first few minutes of the game, Anthony Davis just suddenly realizes that, like, no, I can't be playing out here, right? So he has to leave the game. And like you could just literally see the entire body language and the belief and the mentality of the Lakers just fall apart because they're like, shit, like we can't win this game without Anthony Davis. Like he's our anchor to everything that we do, right? And that's kind of what it reminded me of tonight. Like obviously Giannis is more important to the Bucks than Dame, and Dame at this phase of his career is a different type of player, but you could literally see the Bucks just kind of let go of the rope a little bit after that Dame injury in a weird way where it's like you almost feel like if Dame was just out with the blood clot for the series, you almost feel like the Bucks would have had like a different approach going into that game. Like, all right, we don't have Dame tonight, but we're going to give this our best shot. And you could just tell it just sucked the life out of them. And they just didn't do anything well enough. And to make matters worse, the Pacers played a phenomenal game. It's 7 guys in double figures, 36. I checked this with 2 minutes left, so this might be a little bit updated. But at like a minute, 45 seconds left in the game, they had 36 assists on 48 made field goals. That's insane. That's a 75% assist percentage. That's like outrageous. They shot the shit out of the basketball. They shot damn near 45% from 3. Watching them versus the Cavs is going to be a ton of fun, specifically the speed matchup. One of the things that I'm really excited about with that matchup is the Cavs in a lot of what they do to teams is play with pace, get into the teeth of the defense with their speed. And the Pacers do match up directly with that. In a lot of ways, to me, the Cavs are just a better version of the Pacers, right? Like you're going to like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen is a better front court than Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, obviously a better back court than Andrew Nembhard and Tyrese Halliburton. The Cavs have a bunch of different guys that they can plug in at the 3, but like the point is like they are kind of similar archetypes of teams, but the Cavs are just a little better at everything, right? And that's what makes it a super interesting series because that speed element, a lot of the things that the Pacers do, they should be comfortable with going against the Cavs. And I think that's going to make for a very interesting series. That's my big prep for tomorrow. We're not doing a film session tomorrow morning, but what I'm going to be doing tomorrow morning is starting to watch film on the Cavs Pacers. I'm really excited to dig into that series. As for Giannis, an Achilles tear for Dame massively devalues the one trade asset that the Bucks would have had to attempt to pivot this summer. So now the chances of Giannis getting traded are astronomically higher than they were before the injury, obviously. But just for the record, I'm not going to get into anything regarding Giannis trades at this point until the postseason. Until we're done with the postseason. That's a summer conversation. I haven't even really thought about it much. Maybe we can do it for fun over a mailbag one of these nights, but like I feel relatively certain that Giannis will get traded this summer, but like we just don't know how things are going to shake down. Like, it could be a team in this playoff field that gets eliminated and is disappointed and wants to make a super aggressive move. It could literally be the Thunder, for God's sakes. Like, we have no idea what it's going to be. We'll talk about it a lot this summer. I just don't want to get into it tonight. But again, I feel terrible for Dame, and I'm sure Bucks fans are in a really tough spot right now. It's not a good spot to be, and I just sympathize with you guys. And I'm thankful for you guys that you did get a championship out of the Giannis Antetokounmpo era, and you can literally never take that away. All right, guys, that's all I have for tonight. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting me and supporting the show. No morning film session tomorrow, but we will be live after the final buzzer of Game 4 of Warriors-Rockets. I'll see you guys then tomorrow night.